let's launch a new instance here. All right, so this is the configuration page that you will see. It contains a lot of different attributes once you're launching it. So the first thing that you see here is your names and tags. So let's create an instance called as my test Linux machine. All right, so you can give any name that you want. And it doesn't matter whether your name is unique or not. So if you already created an instance with this name, it will still create it, because at the back end it maintains another level of a naming convention. Now, once you have, let's make it simple. Let's make it my test one. Now, the next thing that it will ask you is, what do you want your instance to be? So do you want it to be your Amazon Linux, or you want a Mac instance, or you want an Ubuntu, or you want Windows, Red Hat? And there are other different instance AMI as well. So we had a look at what an AMI means. So AMI, it's an image that has already been created. So these are all the plain images that AWS provides. You can also have a look at different more AMIs from AWS Marketplace. For example, if you want a Linux instance with WordPress installed, you'll be able to click this and get different sort of AMIs. For example, if I want something called as WordPress, so you should be able to see. Okay, there's nothing called as WordPress in here. Let's see what it has. So it's got WordPress with Ubuntu. So if you want a pre-installed WordPress with an Ubuntu in here, you'll be selecting this AMI. So there are different sort of configurations that you can have. Some WordPress with OpenLight, WordPress with blah blah blah. So these are the AMIs from the marketplace. So coming back to your instance, what we'll be doing is we'll be starting up with an Amazon Linux, just a plain instance in here. Now this is the Amazon machine image. So this is your free tier. So there are different types of tiers available. So if you select this machine, so it says that it will not cost anything. If you are selecting it from a marketplace, they can have their pricing attached to it. The description is Amazon Linux. So it gives you so this is the latest that Amazon has provided. And you can select even previous versions as well from in here. For this instance, so we'll just create the default, which is the latest version. This tells you the Linux machine. It will tell you what the AMI is. It will tell you what sort of kernels and all the description. So it's an x86-64 machine. There are different types of machines in here. So I think if you see, there's another type of machine called as, and it doesn't have it here. I think Red Hat might have a few more. So these are all x86 64 bits. If you are selecting your Windows machine, so some of the Windows machines are 64 bits, and well, all of them are 64 anyway. You can select any sort of machine from here. A free tier, it tells you the description and the kernel, the architecture. So it's got either an x86 or it has got ARM. So there are two types of architecture cores available. Generally, you don't change the architecture because you just select it, whatever it is. But if there is any specialized environment that you want, let's say you want something connected with graphics which only ARM provides as a hardware, then you select that. Okay. So these are all the default sets that we have. So just selecting Amazon Linux from here. Now this is the most important bit. What is the instance type? So instance type for T2 Micro, it's one of the smallest in the family. I think T2 Nano is the smallest to that. T2 Micro is what AWS provides as a free tier. By free tier, it means up to 750 hours a month. And that goes on for an year. So if you don't create anything in AWS and you have just a T2 micro running, your bill will still be zero. So it will not charge you anything. But if you have got other services running, for example, if you create two T2 micros, then the second instance, only one instance is free. Second instance, it will start charging up with this. So it's got some price written over here. So it'll start charging you for these. All right. One thing which I didn't explain, and that's important to know, is the regions. I'll actually show you here. So if you see here, so these are all the different regions that we spoke about. So now, and we told that regions have got different availability zones. So the North Virginia region, US East, so that is the most popular region. And even from the pricing point of view, I think it's one of the cheapest. So North Virginia is one of the cheapest. The pricing of each region is different. So if you create a T2 micro, or if you create any sort of machines here, because I have selected Sydney region, the pricing will be different. But if you let's say for T2 medium, if you look at the pricing in North Virginia, it will be a different pricing. So you'll have to take into account as to which region you want to go into, whether for latency or for compliance, whether it's pricing and cost. So that makes a difference. So we are in the Sydney region and we are selecting all the defaults. So T2 micro will do for this demo purpose. So we'll just keep on T2 micro. Actually, let's take a T2 medium here, because T2 micro might take around 2 minutes to start. So let's make it a T3 medium. So this will start up pretty quickly, and I'll be terminating this instance after the demo. All right. So there's something called as key pair. Key pair is what it asks you to connect your instance for the first time, or every time. If you're not created a separate user to the instance, you can always use a key pair to securely connect. So you can create a new key pair, or you can use an existing key pair. So let's create a new key pair here. Now, you can give a key pair its name. So let's say if I use it as Saurabh, just keep it as, you can give it any name so you can recognize it. So I'll just use it as underscore key2. You can have key pair type and RSA encrypted private and public key pair, or there's another type of encryption. For my purpose, RSA is okay. If you are using SSH, if you're using a Mac terminal or an open SSH, you create a .pem file. But if you're using a Windows server, or if you have a Windows box, you should be using .ppk, because then you can use it with putty. .pem file, you cannot use it with putty. So I'll just be creating this key file here. I'll do a create key pair. All right. Now what just happened was, as soon as I created a key pair, so it just downloaded a file on my computer. So if you see here, so it generated an underscore key.pem. So it's a private key. It is not supposed to be shown to anybody. It's a garbage sort of. You will not be able to read it in English. What I'll do is I'll just show you, but I'll be deleting this key pair immediately after. So, all right, I think okay, I'm not sharing my whole computer screen here, but a key pair is it's a file. Let me share my whole screen. Actually, then you'll be able to see. So if I do a share screen and I share my whole desktop. All right. So what just happened was, when I created this key pair here, so inside the downloads directory, there was a file that was downloaded automatically. So it's a .pem file. It's not a file which you can easily see. So if you cannot do anything out of it. So it's not an English readable file. I will not be able to show you in a, let's see if I am able to open it in text edit. So if you see this, it's like a public and private key, right? So, but this is what you would use to actually just go in and to log into your machine. Okay, let me go back to. So now network settings. So it will give you some default network settings, and there it is your security group. Now this is very important because this is what controls the flow of traffic from your EC2 instance. Do you want to allow SSH traffic from anywhere? So what it means is when I'm trying to connect it to this instance, you can connect it from anywhere in the world. So it's an open subnet mask and an open range. So now, do you want to allow HTTPS? So if you have got any web applications you want users to connect to, then you would allow HTTPS and HTTP traffic. You can change these settings once you are into your EC2 instance as well. Now, just remember that rules with a source of all zeros, it will allow all the IP addresses to access your instance. When you are in an organization, you actually just allow a specific range of IP addresses only. So every organization will have a specific set of IP ranges. For example, you got 192.168.x.y, and then you just limit it down to your subnet mask. All right. So let's just allow HTTPS and HTTP as well. So if we have any Apache server installed on this, it will be able to serve the traffic. Actually, let's disable it and then we'll enable it in the properties. So we're just allowing an SSH traffic from anywhere. So at this point of time, once we create it, so there is no web traffic allowed from the internet, right? So this is how we are only allowing SSH traffic. Now we have got the configuration storage. So it's got 8 GB of root volume. And you can also attach your new volumes in here. So let's say if you want an EBS volume attached, which is not encrypted. We read about the EBS volume just a few minutes back. So if you want, let's say, an 8 GB of EBS volume, so you should be able to attach it from here itself while you're initializing. So let's have an EBS volume in here. You can attach as many EBS volumes to here, but because one EBS can only be connected to one instance, if you attach any further EBS volumes in here, that EBS volume cannot be used with any other instance. Just remember that. All right. So normally what you would do in most of the cases, you just select all these different values, and generally you do not need to go into the advanced details, and you just do a launch instance. Let's have a look at what are the advanced details in here. For advanced details, do you want to request spot instances? And that is where our dear Vishwa is more interested in. So requesting spot instance, we do not want it right now. Now there are lot many different attributes here. So this is very, very specific to some of the use cases. So we have got domain join directory. We've got IAM instance profile, which instance should be used. So there are different sort of IAM. We'll know more about IAM instances, but just remember that you can have specific IAM instances attached depending on the roles and the users and the groups. We just leave it as blank. In most of the cases, you don't need to change any advanced details. Instance auto recovery. How do you want to recover? Do you want to recover the instance as a default setup from AWS, or do you want to disable it? What should be the shutdown behavior? Once you click on the shutdown for an image, should it stop it or should it terminate it? Similarly, a hibernation behavior. Do you want to select hibernation or not? Enable or disable? Similarly, termination protection. So if you select a termination protection as enable, that means it will not allow anybody to terminate the instance. So what it means is it creates a checkbox within the instance, and you will have to, in order to terminate the instance, you first have to do this termination protection as disable, and then only you can terminate it. So it's an extra feature so that accidentally nobody terminates it. So somebody will have to turn this feature off, and then only you will be able to terminate it. Others, you have got stop protection, you've got elastic GPU, CloudWatch monitoring, all these different attributes. I would like you to actually go and play around with all these different attributes. Which placement group do you want to put in? You need to first create a placement group. We had a look at the 3 types of placement groups. So once you select that, you'll be getting the placement group options. Is it an EBS optimized instance? Capacity reservation. Everything is like an enable or disable. Capacity reservation, targeted IDs. There are different types of all these values which it provides. Tenancy, what sort of tenancy do you want your EC2 to be? So do you want a shared tenancy? That means multiple tenants can run on your onto the racks. Do you want a dedicated tenancy? So that means run a dedicated instance. So a hardware will be provided to you. In this case, in case of dedicated instance and dedicated host, so specific sets of hardware is provided, so that your instance, all the hardware resources are allocated to your instance only. Everything that you select in here will keep on attributing to your cost. So anything extra that you select on top will start increasing your price of the instance. So similarly, your metadata, your license configurations, do you want any external licenses? If some AMIs allow it, for example, if you have from the marketplace, if you are using an instance with an Oracle license, so you can select an Oracle license then in from here, and then it will attribute to more cost. Specifying CPU options, how many cores, how many threads. The more you increase it, the more it starts. Sometimes the number of cores that it provides, you're better off. In this T3 medium, it doesn't. But if you're selecting large instances, it will give you more variety of CPU options and also the memory options. User data. So this is what is important. When I was explaining user data, so it's more like if you have Amazon AMI, so it will allow few commands. For example, like you have got yum. If you do a yum update -y, it will update it to the whatever is the latest yum. So if you do a yum install HTTPD, so it will install the Apache server already. So if you do like a service HTTPD start, that means it will install the Apache server and it will also start the service. So you can have different sort of configurations in here. You can have many sets of deployments that are already there. If you want to also do a yum install git, so what it will do is it will, I think you do -y. So you can have different sets of commands in here, and it will do, once your instance is started, all these commands have already been executed. So this is a common question as to what sort of user data that you can put it in. So these are all the shell script commands that you can use, and your instance will be started up with that. All right. So we didn't touch up anything in the advanced. So what we are doing here is we don't want that. So we're creating an instance. So summary is we are creating an instance with my test1. It's an Amazon Linux box. We're creating Amazon Linux x86 architecture. We are using a T3 medium. We're using this new key pair to log in. It's got some of these VPC and subnet details. You can change and edit it. We are going through just SSH traffic. We are not allowing HTTPS and HTTP. And we have one 8 GB of root volume and one 8 GB of EBS volumes. And let's launch this instance. If you see the next screen is successfully launching an instance. So this is your instance ID. So if I just click on that, it will take me to the instance ID. Now, if you see the instance state is running. So if I would have selected T2 micro, so the instance state would be first pending and then it will be running. Because I selected a T3 medium, so it was very, very fast. So it didn't go through it didn't go through the connecting or pause state, or it just is straight away you can see it running. Now, how do you connect this instance? So before we actually do that, let's have a look at the different properties. So whatever we created in this instance, so this is the instance ID. So each instance ID is unique, and it's unique not only to your account, it's unique across the whole AWS. So this is your public IP address. So you can reach to this machine using this IP address. So if you launch up a web server on your instance, you get this specific IP, and you can reach to this machine. This is your private IP address. So this is only used for your internal AWS networking. So all the communication within your AWS can be done using your private IP address. So this is the host name of the machine. So that is by using this or your IP address. Okay, somebody drew. Okay, so using this or your IP address. Anybody has got any questions? Somebody just drew on my screen. I'm happy to take questions if there's anything. No? Okay. So this is your host name. So you got your private IP. So this is your auto-assigned public IP address. Now these are the VPCs and subnets. So this is the VPC where it is launched. So it's a default VPC. You can also create your VPC manually, and also your subnet here. Okay. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has any. I'm not